Welcome back to the best year of your life. We are in for an informative conversation today with Holistic Spaces creator Anjie Cho. I'm going to begin by sharing a little bit about Anjie and then we'll get started. Anjie is a feng shui educator, architect, and teacher of meditation and Dharma arts. She is a creator of Holistic Spaces and has guided thousands of people to harmonize their living spaces through the ancient practice of feng shui. Anjie is a co-founder of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School, co-host of the Holistic Spaces podcast, and owner of Anjie Cho Architect PLLC. She is the feng shui expert at The Spruce and has been featured in dozens of publications, including the New York Times, Mind, Body, Green, and BuzzFeed. She is also the author of Holistic Spaces, 108 Ways to Create a Mindful and Peaceful Home. So today we are on day 9 of the summit, and our focus is on simplicity and earth-friendly living. I know your work is deeply influenced by a connection to nature, so we look forward to exploring some of this with you today. So Anjie, to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your pathway into becoming a holistic spaces creator, architect, and feng shui educator? And we'll go from there.
Okay. So thanks for asking, actually. So my story basically is that I studied architecture and I was really into architecture and design and art. And that's what I studied and that's what I practiced. And then during my Saturn return, which is like your late 20s, I realized that I was really unhappy and something needed to change. And so I had a spiritual epiphany and I realized, okay, I need to change things. I'm really depressed. And I didn't know what to do, but I figured, okay, I'm going to start studying meditation and yoga and see what happens with that. So then I followed that. I pursued that. And then that naturally led me to start to consider like what are the pathways in which I can integrate this into my work, which is what I do a majority of the time, right? We work so much.
Yeah.
And so I became curious about feng shui and started dabbling here and there. And I'll tell you actually, when I got laid off during the last recession, I had this opportunity to do something I love instead of just getting another job because I didn't have the option to get another job. No one was answering my calls.
Right.
So I decided to dive deep and take this feng shui certification program, a 3-year program that I had always told myself no, that I don't want to do this. No, I don't have enough money. No, I don't have enough time. I gave all myself the excuses. And then finally, when I, just had open space, open time, because I was laid off, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to do this because I love this. And I'm really interested in this. And when I decided to pursue something that brought me joy, like a whole new world opened up to me and I never looked back.
That is such an amazing story. And I love that we could instead of just going into what is it? How does it work? People find their passions and their purposes all kinds of different ways. And so it's always so interesting to hear people's stories of what got you into this line of work or passion or whatever it is. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And then the follow-up question to that is, what exactly does a holistic spaces creator do?
So my default answer for everything is, well, it depends. But my day or my life includes helping people to educate them about how to be more connected with their spaces and start to see that feng shui is a mindfulness practice that can open up opportunities for you to begin to see your interdependence and your interconnectedness with your environment, and allow you to kind of in a basic way, create a space that nurtures you. So I actually, I teach people, I teach the public, I write for the Spruce, I write books. I actually just finished writing my second book, which wasn't in the works when I had sent my bio in, but now it's almost was done. It's written. So
yeah.
So I do a lot of education, and then I do a lot of working with people and having them start to look at their homes differently.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could ask all the questions about the feng shui. If you're doing just a Zoom call, is it easy to give people examples? Do you bring them around your home, or do you just start off I'm just curious about that so people can kind of understand and physically see that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, so I teach feng shui online on Zoom, and it was even before the pandemic that we were teaching on Zoom because my business partner is in Canada.
Okay.
And so we decided to have an online school together so we could reach a bigger audience. And feng shui is actually energetic. So you don't have to be present with someone. And also the tool we use to work with someone is a floor plan. And so there's a lot that you can do without being physically present in someone's home. At the same time, I do things physically present with people.
Sure.
But I think I'm really accustomed to working with people and communicating through text, through social media, through Zoom, and through a podcast. So it's not always in person. So I found ways to really convey that information without having to be present with them.
So tell me, what would we find surprising about feng shui?
Well, I think actually you really touched on it, that it's an energetic discipline. I think a lot of people think, okay, so feng shui means that I have to move some piece of furniture and I think I need to paint my door red. And put something Asian looking in my house.
Right.
Right. And with everything in life, of course, there's this very entry level kind of, I call it the Barnes and Noble version of the information or the wisdom. And then with most things, you dive deeper and you see that there's much more nuances and hopefully there's more depth to it. So I think that a lot of people are surprised that you can look at your space and look at the energy of it and look at the chi. And it doesn't have to involve actually moving anything around. And you definitely don't have to paint anything red.
I love that you said that because that's exactly where my mind would have went. And something that I feel you can tell in a space that it doesn't feel right. You're this is stuffy or overcrowded or chaotic maybe. At least I know that's how I can't work in those kind of spaces. I feel like I have to organize before I can do anything else. And it really is all about the energy to kind of be at that peace. So I love that you said that. How can mindful design help us in not only our home lives, but in any area of our lives?
So the way that I look at feng shui, and I think part of my life purpose is to actually redefine the feng shui. And it goes back to your last question in a sense, that it's really a mindfulness-based practice. So that's why my business partner, Laura, and I decided to call our school Mindful Design.
Yeah.
And because there's this huge element of seeing that there is this importance of looking at the earth realm, what your home is what is happening around you. But there's also this invisible realm. So the earthly realm, or what we see, could be the visible aspect. And then there's also this invisible aspect. And so that's part of how to create a mindful space, is just to even start to notice that there is a connection to your space and that it affects you. Because some people think, oh, I can I don't have to have like a very special space, or there's a lot of judgment connected with it. Like they're just afraid to even start with looking at their spaces.
Right.
But most people, like you said, there's an intuitive connection already. Like if you're looking for a new home, most people walk into a space and know right away, like this feels good or this doesn't feel good.
Right.
Like I want to live here or I don't want to live here.
Yep. Exactly.
Or maybe, yeah. So you get something.
Yeah. I understand that for sure. For sure. And I love that you called it mindful design, because it is a mindful practice, and it's just laying it out in layman's terms, basically. How can considering space harmony help us improve the quality of our lives?
Okay. So one aspect of feng shui is they say like it's to create a harmonious space.
Okay.
But part of creating a harmonious space is actually beginning to start to notice that a space that doesn't have harmony can start to also be helpful for us too, that it can start to inform us that there is something to look at, and there's some gold there, right? Actually, like, so someone asked me once, like, I hate dust. How do I never have dust again? And it's like, well, if you live in this world, you get dust, and you can actually be thankful to the dust, because the dust gives you information. It teaches you, like, this is an area you're neglecting, and it shows you that time passes. Mm-hmm. And so part of having a harmonious space is recognizing that there are times and places where there is disharmony, and it's about working with that flow and adjusting to it and acknowledging it rather than ignoring it and just avoiding it.
Yeah. All right. In your book, Holistic Spaces, 108 Ways to Create a Mindful and Peaceful Home, you talk about the benefits that living in a considered organic way can bring. I love this idea that you present, that every room in our home can be designed to serve its highest purpose. Can you give us a glimpse into how we might tune into the purpose of a room and create eco-friendly spaces for ourselves that does serve our highest purpose?
So I think every person would love it if there were other people around them that were curious about them, that asked, like when you asked me, like, tell me about your, like how you ended up here.
Right.
Like, that feels good to me when somebody cares and has some curiosity and asks what my history is, where I came from, what my story is. And so it's kind of the same for your home too, that we have some kind of curiosity about looking at, where do the things in my home come from? Mm-hmm. But also, like, what are the people that lived in the home before me, or what is the function of this home? So just having like curiosity about the people that come in, the things that you put in, the atmosphere you create, and all of that can have meaning and does have meaning, because your home is actually a symbol for you. Mm. And a really kind of straightforward way of looking at this, that I like, an easy way to start to think about this, is that in feng shui, we talk about your bedroom as a really important room, because you spend like a third of your life in your bedroom,
right?
If not more. And so it represents you. It's a symbol for you. It's your most private space, right? Like, so people come over, they don't usually come into your bedroom. Right. Some do, but most people, you meet them outside, right? In the public areas. So it's a more private space. It's also where you sleep. So you go to this room to rejuvenate, to rest, to regenerate. Yeah. And so your bedroom is a representation of you. And I've seen a trend, especially lately, where a lot of people spend so much more time on like making a beautiful kitchen or a beautiful living room, or, you know, and then the bedroom gets neglected. So just like by being curious about how we engage with our home, asking our home its story, like its life path, we can start to learn about ourselves and start to find out more, because again, yeah, like what you do in your bedroom affects you.
Right.
And also when you're in your bedroom, you're mostly sleeping. So you're actually in a passive yin state, and you're really susceptible to the chi around you, the energy.
Oh my gosh. That's such a great point that you brought up about like the room is the most important. I have a follow-up question to this, because it just made me think of this. So what if you get like customers, clients that their space isn't one that they necessarily got to pick out because it's their dream home or their dream space. It was really all they could afford in the moment, and they're just trying to make the most out of their space. Do you find that happens often, is my first question? And like, can people still, like, for me, I hate my kitchen. I was talking earlier about this. It's so small. It's not super functional. So I just don't like it. Is there options to make it like where I would actually enjoy it and put some stuff in there?
Okay. Well, the first question is, oftentimes I do hear from people that ask questions. They aren't usually the ones that will invest in. Well, so this actually says something. They won't invest in it, but they will try to ask a free question about like, what do I do if I like hate my kitchen or something, right? Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's fine.
But it happens a lot, right? And I have you, but you know what? What I say is you do the best you can with what you have, right?
Yep.
So, you can have the smallest space, but it can be a palace if you put your love into it.
Yes.
So then your other question is, so if there's a room in one's home where it provides or it creates some negative feelings and difficulty and challenges, it's kind of like that dust thing. It's like you can be thankful to it for pointing out maybe, okay, well, what does the kitchen represent? What do we do in our kitchen?
Right. Cook.
We nourish ourselves, we cook.
Yeah.
And in feng shui, actually, it relates to our wealth and abundance, because how well you can nourish yourself directly affects how well you do in the world. So if you go into your kitchen and you're like, I just like it, it's too small, it's not how I always want it to be different. It's like they say in Buddhism, like we always want, like one of the reasons why humans suffer is because we don't want what we have and we want what we don't have. Right. But regardless, you have your kitchen. Yeah. So what are you going to do with it? So you can appreciate that you have like a functioning stove. Many people don't. Yeah. And do the best you can with what you have, and bring in something that you love, like a flower, or there's many ways you can work with it. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's like another thing, that's a lot of people have so many judgments about their own home. They're embarrassed of their homes. But that's also, there's part of you that you're embarrassed of as well. Yep. Because it's a reflection of, as you said, kind of yourself. And if you're like, this isn't really how I really am, I promise you. But it's, again, like, I think someone can have a very tiny, non-functional kitchen, and maybe it's the universe is telling you, like, this is something that you can look at. This may be an indication that you are now ready to work on this area of your life. Yeah. And there's like a very literal, mundane kind of connection to, like, maybe it's something that you want to invest in, but there's also a metaphorical connection. Like maybe there's something about like how you take care of yourself, or how you nourish yourself, or how you support yourself that is not being addressed as well. And you can start to use that as an opportunity to examine and unpack. And it means that you're ready to do it. Yeah. So speak to us about mindfulness of space. What does this mean, and how does it help us improve our quality of our life? We'll kind of stop there, and then I'll do the follow-up question. Okay. So mindfulness is about paying attention to the details. And so we have the opportunity to pay attention to the details of our home and our environment and begin to recognize and become aware of the impact on us. And then really it's about starting to see that you are not separate from your environment. You're not separate from your neighbor that you have problems with. You're not separate from that person down the street. You're not separate from the difficult client you have. That it starts to generate compassion as you start to see that we are not separate.
Yeah.
And so then we're connected to our homes that's like a living thing, as well as like nature, the sun, the moon, and all sentient beings. And so it gives you a wider view and then allows you to start to see that you can begin to even see obstacles in your life. And that's one of the purposes of mindfulness. Like you start, mindfulness meditation is you start to see the obstacles that you create and how do those manifest in your home and how do those relate to your life. And so you start to receive messages from your home to give you guidance. And this is one of the many reasons why feng shui can be considered a mindfulness practice, at least the way that I teach it.
Yeah. That is amazing. Just thinking like what messages it tells us. I think, which we could probably have a whole interview about it, but like combining two people's space, like not spaces, but like when you're living with somebody and maybe your idea and your energy is here, where somebody else's is like, oh, I don't care. Simplest terms, like you have somebody that's very tidy and wants things to be perfect in space because that's how I work. And then like, your boyfriend that's like, I don't really care. I'm just going to throw the shoes wherever. That can be really hard to navigate, I'm sure, when trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, I actually just had like I got annoyed at my husband for not putting the dishes in the dishwasher the right way.
Yep. Yeah.
But regardless of how we react to that, that person is still going to stay the same. And we still are connected with them, and we can start to see how we also don't change as well. Exactly. And how instead we can notice, be mindful, and have compassion.
Yeah. Not always easy, but yes.
Well, it also helps to have a sense of humor about it. Like, so I called my husband and said, you should really put these in this way. And he said, and he actually gave a really good response. He said, I knew it was going to be risky the way that I loaded the dishwasher. And so then I couldn't help but laugh. And I said, but you failed. but putting some humor on it humanizes it all.
Exactly. And not so serious. And exactly. So the follow-up question to what I asked before is going to say, how can we develop our sensitivity to really access this dimension that is essentially invisible to us?
So, feng shui, when feng shui was developed, it was in conjunction with other traditional Chinese medicine techniques or modalities. And one of my friends who's a doctor of East Asian medicine told me that actually, traditionally, you would first work with feng shui and astrology before you work with needles or herbs. So while people think maybe feng shui is energetic and invisible, that's true. It's very subtle, but it's actually working with all the visible things around you. It's actually working with your home. So I find that it's really a wonderful, non-invasive way of starting to make shifts, because it's very subtle. You start to move the things around you, and then it starts to kind of click that it's affecting you too. And it's not so invasive. It's not so strong. It's very subtle.
Yeah. Is there any place that like you can't put it there because energy needs to stay there and you can't put a physical thing. Like, don't put this plant in the corner, but I guess plant is also energy.
So
does that question make sense?
Yes and no. So people, that's like another thing that that I'm trying to redefine feng shui a little bit to make it less fear oriented, where it's like, don't do this because this is bad.
Yeah.
Because there's always an exception to the situation. So, of course, if I'm giving some kind of public writing or talk, it needs to be kind of a broad stroke. And so in general, this is like, in general, for instance, if you have a plant and you want to get a plant for a feng shui purpose, in general, you would want to avoid maybe spiky plants because you want to kind of stay with like curved and soft energy. But there's always an exception. And so similarly, there could be things that like you maybe want to avoid, but it really depends. Like another one is, so I'm looking at your setup here. You have a lot of doors, but ideally when you're sitting at your desk, you want to be able to see the door without directly being in line with the door, and you don't want the door behind you.
Wonderful.
But the it depends part is also, if that's the only place you can put your desk, you could set up a mirror so that you could see the reflection of the door behind you. But what it does is that it works on a mundane level as well as an energetic level. Like, you can't see who's coming into the room. So it activates your flight or flight response.
Yes.
But if you can see the door, like at least correct it with the mirror, then you have some acknowledgement and you have a way to correct it. But all these little things affect us, like over time, like a water dripping on a rock, like not being able to see the door affects you.
Right. So my boyfriend and my daughter both live here with me. And sometimes when the door opens, there's like this sense of nervousness, not because I'm doing anything wrong, but it's because I don't know which one's coming in the door. Like, is that my daughter? Is that my boyfriend? I'm not sure who it is. And you're so right. But this is the perfect window for lighting. So I was like, well.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I get that a lot now too, since the pandemic. People are like, oh, but I need it for Zoom lighting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because actually, it is not ideal to look out the window either.
I'm messing up hardcore here.
Well, it depends. So the way I put it is, your chi goes straight out the window. So it depends on your situation. You're setting yourself in front of your window to get the best lighting, but maybe you're not like setting yourself up like that because you can stare out the window all day. Because your chi, if you're just setting yourself up that way because you want to look out the window all day, then your chi goes out the window. Your energy doesn't stay at your desk.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but I would rather like focus on the work that I want to do and then go out instead of sit at my desk and look out the window. I want to be outside or be away from my desk I don't want to have to be here all day.
Right. There's so much to learn about this energy stuff. So much to learn. So go ahead.
Oh, I had one other thing that I wanted to mention about the energy, like working with something that's invisible. So another example of this is like, okay, so you may have like a treasured object, like maybe it's related to your daughter. You said your daughter? Your daughter. And so it's something that you really want to keep. And so and it's very important to you. And everyone has something like that, right? Yeah. So everyone's already acknowledged that there's an invisible energy that is connected to this object that is very meaningful. Because if you handed me your object, I would probably be like, I don't know what this means. Right. I would say, this is just like a drawing, really bad drawing. I'm going to recycle it. And you'd be like, no, it's a drawing for my daughter, So, we all understand that like there are objects and material things and places that bring up nostalgia, that hold energy for us. And so that that is there. It's just easy for people to dismiss it.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you bring up about that, to really make people to understand, like, well, what's this sentimental thing that is actually carrying energy because you care about it. So thank you for that point. We're talking about mindfulness of energy. How does this help us harmonize with our environment, and what does it reveal to us, and how can we develop our sensitivity to access this quality of energy that is not really visible to the naked eye?
Well, the key is, I don't think it's not like a magic it's an ordinary magic. It's like an ordinary energy. Okay. It's like the energy that is in a human. And like when you die, like when you're alive, you have a spark in your eye, right? And when you die, there's no more spark. And so it's not anything that is special or unique or that you need to learn. It's simply just within everything. And it's even, it's within the dust, like I mentioned, and within all the objects around you. And I'm not sure if there's necessarily a way to cultivate it besides through slowing down and becoming, and actually mindfulness practice, right? Like meditation practice.
Right.
I mean, that's really the best way to do it, to start to connect with yourself through mindfulness practice. And then I guess also you can actually, here's a good way too, is to just simply go outside, which is not, it's not part of your home, but watching nature and watching the seasons go by and seeing how things change and observing the flow, like the Tao, the way, the energy of nature. So it's not anything extraordinary that someone needs to give you. Right. It's already there.
Yeah. That's such a great way to put that, because I think for me, I expect like, I don't want to say something crazy to happen, but we're like, oh, there's this energy and like, oh my gosh. And it is this like magical ball that like we can't see. And of course, yes, it is very powerful, but it's just there and we can just start accessing it at any time.
Yeah. It's actually like, it's like the messages, like I talked about the messages from your home or from the phenomenal world. They're already there. You're just like not paying attention to them. So it's not like there's this magic ball of light that's going to show up one day. It's the light has always been there and it's brilliant, and you've just closed your eyes to it.
Yes. That's a good, like, basically perspective shift. You haven't looked at it yet.
Yeah. Like for instance, I talk a lot about like doors, right? Doors in feng shui represent your mouth. It represents a transition. It represents communication, or represents movement. But it makes sense because, like, if you think about many other cultures, like for instance, the Jewish tradition, they have a mezuzah. Like there's already English words for it. It's like we're going to cross a threshold, or we're going to open a door to a new life, or these metaphors and these meanings and these connections are already there. But oftentimes we're just moving so quickly that we can't see them. Like for instance, when I was a long time ago, when I was in university, we had a architecture project where someone did this project, which was really great. It was called like Toxic Alley. And anyway, we had to do some kind of art installation expressing that this alley was toxic or something. So what this student did was it was a skinny alleyway, and they made all these banners with like facts, like, this is like this many trees are dying or whatever. And they're really up high. So you can walk down this alleyway every single day and never look up and see these messages. Right. So this is just how it is. Like they're ordinary messages that we completely miss, that our world is trying to tell us.
Yeah. That was definitely a good example to like show. And I, as soon as you started painting that picture, like my mind was already there, perfectly. So thank you. All right. So the best year of your life summit is all about actualizing our full potential. So talk to us about the 5 elements and how we might use them to connect with our environments and our lives.
So in Feng Shui, we use the Taoist 5 elements from the Chinese system, and they are earth, metal, water, wood, and fire.
Okay.
And these point to different aspects in our natural world, but they also exist in our homes, within us, in our spaces, in like a flower arrangement.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we can begin to have curiosity about these aspects of nature, how they appear in our world, in our lives, and they can be represented by, or they can be connected to color, to the actual element. Like fire could be fire, or it could be the color red, or it could be a triangle, or it could be a candle, right? But the key is to start to see that this is a way of looking at our universe, and that our bodies are a universe that embody all the 5 elements, that our homes can embody all the 5 elements, that, like, again, a flower in a vase can embody all the 5 elements. So how can we start to notice like these different characteristics? How do they work with each other? How can they support or detract from each other? And how can they be in balance? But I think really the key is for people to start to explore this is to also look at, like, how can we embrace and support all aspects of ourselves, like the fiery parts of us, the watery parts of us, and then get more in touch with what we might need a little bit more of and what we have an excess of, and still be gentle and kind to ourselves. Like, even if you get mad and get fiery all the time, that's okay. That's part of you. And you have all of the 5 elements within you. And then you can start to explore like how that is also like how that shows up in your home, or bring in things into your home, into your life, or wear the colors, or go visit places. Like a fiery place would be like, very hot, like a hot location. It could be a fireplace. Like, how can you start to look at all these different ways of exploring the 5 elements as a little universe?
Okay. And to go along with this, and please tell me if this is kind of the same question, and if you just explained it, but how could working on understanding and connecting with these elements help us? You talked about reaching the full potential, but then health and well-being, relationships, career, financial health, and spirituality, and of course, like so on. Is that basically what you were just saying, that once you start noticing and seeing how that shows up for you, that's when you can see what happens with relationships or career or financial health?
Well, I think you're touching upon like another aspect of feng shui, which is called the Bagua map, which is actually a further distillation of the 5 elements. So like we start with yin and yang, and then yin and yang actually divides into the 5 elements. And then the 5 elements can be like, they open up, they unfurl into an eight sector mandala, basically, which is the Bagua. And it's like a seed that splits. Okay. And a seed that becomes a bud, and that becomes a flower. And so, yes, it's about looking at like how something as simple as yin and yang can masculine and feminine, black and white, sun and moon, and how those are really non-binary. Actually, they work together. One can't exist without the other, and how that can split into a further exploration of the 5 elements, which then can further explore into like different aspects of your life, and be curious about how the ancient Chinese looked at like, how does career relate to water? Why is career related to water? And how is this embodied in my home, in the career area of my home? Or can I can I start to see, because actually the career area of your home is right usually like the front of your house.
Yeah.
So you can start to see how how everything in your life kind of overlays on each other and how it's all interconnected. I know that doesn't quite answer your question, but it's really it's much more complicated than that.
Right. That's what I was going to say. I'm like, oh my gosh, we could talk about this forever and still have more to go to learn everything. So I was inspired by your book. There's something in there that you say, let the universe know through action and intention what you truly want. And I promise you will receive something remarkable in return. Can you share how we might work with this intention this way to bring about what we want in this year ahead?
Yeah. So that quote is really about working with yin and yang. So yang is an action.
Okay.
And yin is more invisible. So it's about using your action, like doing something, not just having the intention, but actually doing something and making it activating in both realms, in the heaven realm, which is the invisible kind of, and the earth realm, which is is on earth. So it could be as simple as like writing it down instead of just saying, I think I'm going to do this, like write it down or tell your friend, or maybe place a plant, if we talked about plants, in a particular like area like of your home with that intention. So doing something is really important, but also the intention behind it is really important too. And then also like really examining like what it is you want, and not squandering your time or your life, and being present right now.
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because there have been so many times where, we'll like start to stress out about something, but then there's other times that it seems like it comes so naturally. What we wanted came naturally to us. And it's like, how did the universe know? But it's like, sometimes you'll have a question in your head of like, how am I going to make this happen? How am I going to connect with this person? And then lo and behold, hear this person cross your path. And it is so important to have that intention and to also put the action, write it down, to make it fully come to fruition.
Yeah, like one thing I say a lot for the new year is to actually write down 9. So I love that I'm the 9th, like on the 9th day.
Yeah.
But 9 is a really auspicious number in feng shui. It's the number of completion, and writing down 9 aspirations, right? Or 9 things that you want to manifest, and then writing them down on a red piece of paper and putting them in there's one area of the Bagua called the New Beginnings area.
Okay.
And putting it in that area. So if you wanted to figure out where that area is we could do it on your bed. So you could stand at the foot of your bed and divide your bed into like a 3x3 grid, like a tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
And the center left area. So the left side in the center, not the far corner and not the closest corner, but the middle left is a New Beginnings area. So putting that red piece of paper, also red because it's the most auspicious color, a red piece of paper with your 9 intentions in a red envelope in that area. So you're actually writing down what you want, putting it somewhere in your home with the intention that you're going to start something new. And then you look, and then you put in your calendar to check next year to see what came true. But for me, if I write things down, usually I can make it happens.
Exactly. I am the same way. And I'm like, why don't I do this more often?
Well, now you can.
Exactly. So as we move towards the end of our time together today, what are some final things that you can share with our audience to help people make this the best year of their lives?
Well, I think the key is to have a lot of kindness and gentleness towards yourself, because I think especially with feng shui, people have there's a lot of shame that comes up.
Yeah.
Like we talked about that, like the embarrassment or being ashamed of their homes, and worried that they don't have the perfect space.
Right.
But to have the bravery to look at your home and acknowledge that nothing is perfect. It always changes. It always like shifts in a cycle. So having gentleness and kindness towards yourself about your home, being brave to look at it, and just acknowledging it. Like you can even go so far as to just think like, okay, is it too minimal? Is it too lifeless? Is it too cluttered and really stuck? Or is it like just right, but you want to deepen your relationship to it? So there's always something to have curiosity about. And when you can approach your home with curiosity and gentleness, it will treat you the same.
Mic drop right there. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Anjie, for everything that you have shared with us today. It's been absolutely awesome. So, final question is, how can people find out more about you and your work?
So, I have a podcast. It's called the Holistic Spaces Podcast. And I also have a website called Holistic Spaces with a blog and online store. And then I also have my new book coming out in April, and it's called Mindful Homes. And then I have my other book, which is called Holistic Spaces.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you again very much for everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Yes, it was.